All right, interwebs, here's the deal, man. Listen up. I got an email from a patron, and normally this would be a question that I would answer on Patreon, but I'm going to reserve his name. I'm going to redact it with a big black Sharpie because he's an operator, bro, and sheep dip him from the comments, and instead answer this on YouTube to give you guys an idea of the kind of stuff that we're doing at Patreon. Just cause that's where the Spirit's taking me. So, he who shall remain nameless asked, what about surviving an EMP or prepping for an EMP? My thoughts on that. And so I'm going to, before we go there, issue this particular caveat. Number one, hydrate, always. When all else fails, hydrate. And then, oh, right, you like this sticker? What is that? That's cool. AdventureFrontier.com. No, I don't make any money from them. Yes, I love them. They're good people. Go see them. AdventureFrontier.com. So, and they got all the things. They got all the prepper things. So, surviving an EMP and prepping for an EMP. There's lots of opinions on this, and let's just be clear. This is 99% conjecture and opinion. It just is. It just is. So there's very little study that's actually been done on this, and most of it was done post-World War II. And then there's this CDC report saying, 90% of Americans will die from an EMP, which we'll get to. All very hypothetical. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take it seriously. But I think it's important to note that these are not hard and fast rules here. And I'll tell you, what I'm about to tell you is my opinion. It's not a fact, it's my opinion. So the first thing that comes to mind is, bro, gonna get cold. Now, it's winter-ish here in Arklay, Texas. We've been blessed with a pretty mild winter, but if you have electric heat and you don't have electricity, you're going to get cold. So alternate fuel sources or heating sources would be a great idea, especially you factor in like the grand solar minimum, bro, which is either definitely coming or not coming or is entirely made up depending on who you believe. Or it's coming, but it will only affect radio waves, not temperature. Or like, again, conjecture, opinion. So, assuming that yes, it gets here, and yes, it gets really cold, which I'm kind of in that camp for both of those things, but I'm not married to it. It's going to be even more cold, so you should probably make sure your house is really well insulated. You should have, like, all the hoodies from interstatesteel.com. What's up, brother? Thank you. And just lots of insulation, lots of heavy clothing. Dude, it's like the ability to grow crops. It's going to be a big deal. But it's going to get cold. It's also going to get hot. I told a guy way back in the day, I said, you can literally take a graph of the development of commercial refrigeration and lay that over a graph of the population of Texas. And they are the exact same curve. The lower cost per ton for air conditioning units, the more population there was in Texas. It's the exact same curve. That's because most of Texas without air conditioning in August, September, even early September, is uninhabitable. It's just freaking miserable. Arizona, yeah, Florida, the deep south, it just gets miserable in a lot of these places. So what are you going to do about that? Is your house built in such a way that it has natural ventilation, that you can take advantage of breeze, that you have shade? So these are all considerations, right? I think changing gears here, mechanical and man-powered tools are a big thing for me. I like having hand saws chisels, a brace and bits, or a sawdust pump, as it's known in certain lines of work. A hammer and nails, just knowing how to use that stuff and having it. I've had the question on Patreon of, what should I stock for building materials? Like as much stuff as you can afford. But having a whole bunch of nails and a hammer and some roofing tar and a putty knife and some kerosene for cleanup and a few other odds and ends just to keep things more or less put together and weather tight, highly recommended. So mechanical tools and manpower tools for sure. There's lots of conjecture over whether or not your vehicle will become inoperable, depending on whether it's a coronal mass ejection or a weaponized, excuse me, chemtrail cough. Thank you, Internet. A weaponized, dirty bomb or EMP or a high altitude or a low altitude detonation, and conjecture, opinion, theory. So your vehicle may work, your vehicle probably won't work. That seems to be the popular opinion, that your vehicle won't work. And so if that happens, ipso facto, as they would say, now what? I hope you're good at walking. I hope you have everything you need at home. I hope you don't have to go anywhere. That's going to suck. I think that there's a major possibility for a refugee crisis of people moving about the face of the earth on foot. And if history is any teacher, which I think it is one of the ultimate teachers, that will end very poorly for a whole bunch of people, which sucks. So I would not recommend being one of those people. So having the ability to shelter in place, regardless of what that looks like for you, would be wise. I, personally, my theory, my conjecture, my opinion is that it is entirely ludicrous to shelter in place in the city because it's a resources game. Too much population density, not enough resources, and if there's no trucks moving, there's nothing coming in anymore. And it's not like you can walk from your, high-rise apartment to the forest and go scavenge some food. It's not there. So I think you'll see a consolidation of power amongst the gangs and cartels and things of that nature. The people who can still move product, they'll figure out a way to move product. Maybe the Teamsters will actually get mule teams again. Who knows? That's entirely possible. But the ability to provide goods and services it does today, but it will definitely have a lot of validity and a lot of power attached to it. But that's not a resource game I want to play. I don't want to be in, Detroit, which already is kind of a cesspool. I don't even know why I said kinda. It's already a cesspool. And then have to deal with SHTF. Not interested. I'm just not interested. So, and I think in even suburbia, it's a dangerous equation to bet your life on. Now, recently-ish, there was a hurricane that hit Texas under a year ago. Hit Houston. Maybe just about a year ago. I don't remember. TBI, bro. Come at me. Anyway, hurricane hit, and there was a gas shortage in my town in North Texas. Not because there was no gasoline, but because there was the perception of no gasoline, which created a run on the pumps, which meant that everybody was out there filling every gas can they've ever owned with as much fuel as they could, which created an artificial shortage because the supply-demand got messed up. The supply stayed the same, but the demand went way up, which created an issue. This was in suburbia. This lasted 3 or 4 days, and people were downright ugly to each other in suburban North Texas, allegedly one of the better behaved areas of the world, over gasoline. The perceived shortage of gasoline, not mission critical food, water, medical supplies. Gasoline. Now, gasoline is important, but you will not die without it. So Yeah. Even the concept of suburban prepping and sheltering in place kind of, I just think that people at their most base level can be really cruel and really crude and very much so interested in self-interest only. And it still becomes a population density equation versus a resources equation. And there are limited resources in suburbia. Everything that's there is trucked in. Well, if the trucks stop moving, you have a major issue. You're talking maybe 72 hours before people start getting ludicrous. And then it's not maybe I should have a plate carrier. It's I definitely need my plate carrier because Tom from down the street is mad at me because we've got 12 pounds of potatoes. That's a word. Potatoes, which are not as good as potatoes. Have you had the potatoes? They're freaking tremendous, man. Like, I don't know what they do to them. The little red potatoes, right, that still have the skin on them and some butter and a little bit of sage. Oh, mwah. Anyway. Tom's mad about your potatoes, and so Tom's going to put rounds on you because you have potatoes and he doesn't. Less than ideal. Can you grow food in your backyard? Yep, I've done it. I've grown a lot of food on 1/3 of an acre in backyard Texas, but the problem is, once everybody starts looking over each other's fences, they realize pretty quick, hey, that guy's got a whole bunch of food and we got nothing. That's an issue. So, again, the issue of inoperable vehicles, I think, is massive. Now, a lot of people talk about, well, planes will fall out of the sky. That, in theory, depends upon where the detonation is, and if it's a high altitude or a low altitude. As I understand it, ideally you want it to be in a high altitude so it has a larger spread than a low altitude with a smaller spread. And there are ideal distances from the Earth and all of this, and a lot of that is, again, conjecture and opinion, and the stuff that's not is pretty classified and not something that people should be talking about. But I think it's possible for planes to fall out of the sky. I don't think they will per se. I think the issue will be trying to land all of these planes that are in the sky at runways with in-op towers that are not operable and they can't communicate with the planes. That would suck. Okay, moving on. What about ships at sea? Yeah, same potential issue. Medical conditions, and this is where the CDC report, I think, starts to get kind of gruesome, is the concept that there's a whole bunch of people right now that are on life support or have life-saving equipment like ventilators, oxygen, dialysis, the whole nine, that if the lights go out, they're dead. Just a matter of time. That sucks. There's no way around it. That sucks. It's just a matter of time. Now, if that's you, what do? Well, you could decentralize. You could get away from the grid. Well, T, what if an EMP takes out my solar panels? Yeah, harden your solar panels. Can it be done? Yeah, I'm still kind of skeptical about it. Have some solar panels in, under the dirt and then take them. I know, and it gets more and more and more crazy, and that's kind of why an EMP is a really scary thing. And because it's a really scary thing, it's one of those things that, the doomer porn and fearmongers just latch onto because there's not a lot of great answers here. And there's not a lot of really powerful suggestions. It's just kind of Lord of the Flies-ish, the survival of the fittest-ish question mark with a lot of chance and a lot of speculation and, again, conjecture and opinion. So the CDC report makes a pretty big deal out of the medical issues that people have, that they will not be able to receive critical care or have their existence maintained by life-saving equipment, so forth and so on. Then you get into people who are in the hospital now that if backup generators don't work, that they end up dying too. And then you factor in, emergencies that happen from the EMP and there's no way to respond to them because of in-op vehicles. Those people die. So forth and so on. Then you get into suburban and urban rioting over lack of resources, which creates a huge potential for conflict. I think it's not a potential. It's an absolute conflict that will be coming in those regions. So then people just end up dying because of that, and so forth and so on. And so the CDC says that after a year, 90% of the North American population would be dead. Now, again, conjecture and opinion, yeah, but I think you could at least get me there. It makes sense. If I was a bad guy, I would, pop an EMP or several, right? Wait a year. Okay? Then go pop a few more and then send in the ground troops. Like, that sucks. Really hard to defend against. But, whatever. That's neither here nor there. So, it's one of the reasons that I preach keep the old ways as much as possible. It's one of the reasons we are out here in the middle of nowhere, because the population density equation is much different here. And we have the ability to provide our own nutrition here. We have lots of food stockpiled, but we also have, herds and flocks and gardens and row crops and forest and orchard and all of that. So we can sustain life off of the resources that are around us. And yes, of course, there's the argument that that makes us a target. But that argument really lacks context in understanding where we are and who's around us, and then our own inherent capabilities and convictions. There are lots of targets. There's just some targets that are worth hitting and some targets that aren't. And in my humble opinion, we fall into the column of targets that aren't worth your trouble. So now, of course, we can get super OPSEC-y from there, but I don't think it's worth it, because the archetype of the situation stands that at least here we have some control over our own well-being, right? We're not completely dependent upon the system. I mean, that's the idea behind this channel. Bear independent is the idea that we want to be wildly independent of the system, so that not if, but when the system falls apart or goes away, we're not overly impacted by it, that we may carry on. And so we are out here to the best of our ability, homesteading, keeping the old ways, doing the hard things, building relationships, building teams, growing our flocks, growing our herds, maintaining our property, and doing all of that hard stuff now, so that when we need it, we're not starting from zero. And now if an EMP happens, that's gonna suck. It's much easier to accomplish things with electrons than without electrons. That's just a fact. But we will be here. We will have gained a foothold on the land. We will have made progress in between now and when that happens, whenever that may be. So it's at least a step in the right direction. You could definitely have renewable energy, like I talked about, and decentralize. It's just freaking tough, man, to mitigate against an EMP. But, like we have wells here. So hand pumps on the wells, not just electric pumps. Our wells they produce great, but they're shallow enough that a hand pump will work. Water collection, rainwater collection on roofs. I know, but the city I live in doesn't. Wrong city. Move. I know, but I got a wife and me too. I had a wife and kids too. Still do. They're still here. I moved. Yeah, but you don't understand my job. I had a job too. Life is full of decisions, man. You reap what you sow. Is this a hobby or is this a conviction? Are you really getting ready for the end of the world as we know it, or is this just something that intrigues you and you like playing with? Do you really believe that this is all going to go to hell in a handbasket in the near future? And if so, are you making your actions match your ambitions, or is this just a plaything to you? Is it a cute idea? It's not a cute idea to us. We have built a life around being as ready as we can be, and we completely upended the life that we had and came here because of that. Because sooner or later, it's going to get hard. Now, it can get hard on my terms or hard on somebody else's terms. Well, I can take personal responsibility for that and go, yeah, we're going to do the hard things now. Just take control of it now. Embrace the suck now and try and get better now while we can, while I can affect change on the situation and I have some say in the matter, rather than just wait for something bad to happen. So, Yeah, maybe your jurisdiction doesn't allow rainwater collection. Freaking move, man. Just go. And I know there's all the reasons not to, but there's all the reasons to. So you need to go with your conviction on that one. And if you're unwilling to change your situation, hey, nothing changes, nothing changes. You feel stuck and stagnant, yeah, because you're in the same place you always have been. Step out in faith. Do what you got to do, man. The Father provides. So that's a little diatribe, but I just, forgive me for a lack of sympathy for people in a perceived stuck position, because ultimately it's my fault for me and it's your fault for you. You can take ownership of the situation, or we can sit around and complain about it. Take ownership. Do the hard things. So, because it's going to get hard anyway. Might as well do the hard things on your terms than somebody else's. So, yeah, there's that. Now, fitness, you should be fit. The best of your ability, you should be fit, because when there's no ones and zeros, when there's no flow of electrons, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff with these. And if these don't work that great, you're going to have a hard time of it. You might not make it. So fitness plays into that, but fitness really plays into all, I think, SHTF scenarios. I think there's no good reason I can think of to not be fit. And I say this as the guy that in the last 3 months of rucking, intermittent fasting, and just not eating crap, I've lost over 40 pounds. I had 40 pounds to lose, and that's disgusting for me. But yeah, I've lost over 40 pounds, and I intend to keep going. So, and that's just rucking 6 days a week, calisthenics, and I start eating at noon, and I stop eating at 6 p.m. and drink water. So yeah, it can be done. In 90 days, a little over 90 days, down a little over 40 pounds. It's a big deal. So, yeah, but you got to start, right? So your fitness, oh, you don't understand, T. I do understand. You just got to start. You just got to start. Lastly, your commo, your navigation, all of that is probably not going to work after an EMP happens. So you need old school ways of communicating and old school ways of navigating. So you should have maps of your area printed out now. You should have multi compasses and know how to use them. Compassi? What's the plural of compasses? Compasses. Yeah. Encompasses. Good word. Tremendous. I like compi. Let's go with compi. You should have multiple compi. And know how to use them. And all the maps of your area is printed out. I tell my patrons all the time, usgs.gov is where I get my maps from. It's kind of an archaic site, but they have a combo map there that is a satellite image with topo lines on it and roads overlaid and marked. It's a very good map for navigating on foot. So that's where I get my maps from, and I print them out, and put them in Ziploc bags, and put them in all of my kits so that I have them. And where there are maps, there is a compass. If I have 2 sets of maps on my person, I have 2 compi on my person. So, and then same thing with comms, right? All the radios in the world are cool. This guy right here, great radio, until the balloon goes up, and then what? And then what? So, things to think about. Should you get your old 2-wire military radio? Sure. Morse code? Yeah. Learn calls? Caw-caw! Caw-caw! Oh, that's the dinner bell. Caw-caw! Right? So, it's kind of the thoughts that just come to mind for me as far as, surviving a and prepping for an EMP. And again, I don't think there's anything real profound there for me. It's just kind of a tricky subject because there's so many unknowns. It's not like we've done this before. So, at least not on a large scale. It's been tested, but not on a large scale. So, we don't have a reference point. And without a reference point, there's a lot of unknown. And so, the unknown is what breeds the fear of it. We don't operate in fear. We have concerns, but we don't worry. If I'm worried about anything, I just give it to the Most High. The end. You're one of those crazy Christian. Yeah, you caught me. Oh no. So, to that end, thank you guys for being here. And yeah, shout out to all my Shalomi homies, my Hebrews, our patrons who make the show possible. All of the big channels that are subscribing to us now, which is cool. John X Army, Jennifer, Veterans for Truth, Viking Preparedness, Ethical Preparedness, Survival, Reality, and Prepping, Canadian Prepper, The Lord Humongous, Prepper Logic. Oh, Bug Out Bubba. You should check out Bug Out Bubba. He's awesome. Good guy. What's up, brother? Shalom. Wes S. I mean, there's like all the channels. Go to Squid Actual also. It's been a while. Go to Squid Actual. Good channel. You'll see the, you know what my bear logo looks like? It looks like that, but it's a squid. That's because we used to be the Squid and Bear channel. So go check out Squid Actual. He's a brother. He's a real good guy. So good thoughts and opinions there as well from a man with an interesting background. So yeah, there you go. Paraphernalia is at teespring.com/bearindependent, and bearindependent.com is live. There's stuff coming there. It's just kind of bones right now. We're putting meat on the bones as we go. Lots of podcasty things coming and all the things. And I'm just, yeah, it's tremendous. I'm very thankful that I get to do this, and I thank you guys for it. And yeah, man, if you liked this, you can do the likey, subscribey, sharey thing. But we do stuff very similar to this, although truthfully with a much more pointed response on Patreon, which is, there's always a link down here in the comment, and then there's a little baby bear at the end of each video. You can click on that and it'll take you there. Barrier to entry is $1. We use that $1 or more to in part support our household. We also support certain missions with it. We are supporting the Reverend Gilbert, who's an awesome guy, both with money but also hands and feet, to feed 20 to 30,000 meals in Panama City, Florida. We're not doing all that. He's doing that because he's awesome. We're just showing up to help. And we also support a bunch of really badass door kickers in Southeast Asia who rescue people from the child sex industry and sex slave industry, and rescue good people and do things to bad people. And it's a ministry that's near and dear to my heart, and I know the guys who are involved with it, and they're awesome. And so out of our Patreon blessing fund, they're supported. And so yeah, it's not a shameless plug. I think we do really good stuff with it. And like Men's Group Monday as well. Yeah, Men's Group Monday on Patreon's awesome. We just had a really good Men's Group Monday. That's a live stream we do every Monday night. So anyway, that's the cool story. Thank you guys for being here. Man, channel growth is awesome. I really appreciate you guys doing the likey, subscribe, share thing, and like telling everybody else about it and all the shout outs. And I'm just kind of, it's super cool. So yeah, y'all, shalom.